Welcome, freedom-loving people, to another episode of the Restricted Handling Podcast. As always, you've got myself, Ryan Fugit, former Army aviator, former CIA officer, joined by our illustrious co-host, Glenn Korn, spent over 30 years in the U.S. government, most of that at CIA in some of the hardest locations in terms of U.S. national security. Got a special episode today. We're joined by an individual who goes by the name Makar for operational security purposes. Makar is a frontline soldier turned innovator, to say the least. He joined the Ukrainian army at the very outset of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. He fought in the liberation of Kyiv as an infantryman, transitioned to a stormtrooper, which we can associate on the U.S. ranks as a light infantry or marine type assaulter, and then a leader of a stormtrooper unit in brutal battles, truly, in Bakhmut and Avdiivka. He now commands Ukraine's and possibly the world's first company of entirely strike ground robots. So these are unmanned ground vehicles, UGVs, and his company literally has the full gambit. Assault vehicles, fire support, logistics, evac. They are entirely resourced within his unit, and they are pioneering and redefining how machines and soldiers fight together, and in some cases, how machines fight on their own. So he's joining us literally in the middle of ground operations. He's been fighting since 2022 without stopping. This is a marathon war that you'll hear us talk about. We are so proud and grateful to be here with you today, Makar. Thank you for taking time with us.
Pleased to meet you.
We've read about your unit having forced an entire Russian unit to surrender. This is ground vehicles, unmanned ground vehicles, forcing a surrender of a Russian unit. Can you describe what that was like? It's the first time in history.
Що ви розкажете? Ну, в першу чергу, я би... So first and foremost, it's crucial to mention that Makar states here that like he is not the only person who was responsible for taking those captivities with the UGV. It's the job of the whole unit, of the whole company that works together. And yep, you're right. It's a great achievement for us. It's the first unmanned ground vehicle assault in the history of the battlefield at all. And we managed to take some captivities. And now we are working on making this even bigger and manufacturing new UGVs.
Can you describe just in that forced surrender, how many vehicles did you need on the ground to do that? How did you organize them for people to get an understanding of what that looks like on this new battlefield?
It was 2 UGVs, kamikaze UGVs, so like the one that actually blew up. It was 2 FPV drones, like one set of guys who control the UGVs, one set of guys who work with the FPV drones, and the guys who command and control everything. And one observation unit that's like just controls the battlefield with the Mavic.
And how do you maneuver them to force such a surrender?
Мені дуже подобалось працювати в складі штурмових груп, так, але війна така, що технології зараз вирішують все.
So the whole point of this assault and taking captivities with the UGVs was that there was an assault on this very position prior to that. It was not very successful. It was done by the men actually on the ground, and they were from another brigade, from another unit. So the goal of Makar unit here was to destroy this concealment using UGVs, and then the assault can continue. But eventually we made them. So the key point here is communication and planning beforehand, making the recon. Makar's unit was working on destroying enemy's concealments using UGV for more than a year now. And it was pretty successful.
Makar, could you describe the task organization of your company without, breaching operational security, but like how many vehicles do you have? How many of them are kamikaze versus logistics? How many operators do you need?
Сама структура організації без розкриття якихось, без розкриття якоїсь сенситивної інформації, скільки дронів камікадзе використовується.
Логістика у теперішньому підрозділі, відскільки у мене рота ударного призначення наземних роботизованих комплексів. Раніше я керував взводом логістично-евакуаційним, але в якому ми застосовували бойові НРК.
So Makar used to work in the logistics squad before, but in this logistics UGV squad, they also used to use FPV drones, like UGV FPV drones, kamikaze drones. Now Makar is a company group of FPV kamikaze UGV drones eventually. So, yep, Now we don't work with logistics anymore, just destroying enemy.
Ось, якщо ми говоримо за те, як в мене побудована структура, близько одного взводу управління, який поділений на там відділи планування, аналітики, розвідки. У мене взвод бойових модулів, то це НРК з кулеметами, гранатометами. Там близько взводу у мене призначення по наземних камікадзе, і окремо у мене там взвод майстерні.
So it's almost 4 squads. One squad works on planning, everything that's connected to this stuff. Another squad is working on like setting up the machinery, building new drones, all this stuff. Another squad is working eventually on landing those UGVs.
І камікадзе. Бойові модулі і камікадзе.
And another one is oriented on battle modules, like UGVs with machine guns on them.
Makar, thank you for taking the time to see us today. As Brian mentioned, I just spent some time actually with your units a couple of weeks ago, and it was really eye-opening. I was with your command staff. My understanding is you are maybe the most effective fighting units in the Ukrainian Armed Forces now. We understand that Ukraine, since 2014, has been fighting an enemy which is much larger and has many more resources. And it is not only impressive, but is inspiring to see how the Ukrainian Armed Forces and the Ukrainian people have responded to the aggression of Russia against your country. But one of the questions I would like to ask you is how have you seen the war change, the face of war, the way that war is being conducted, and what message would you give to the U.S. military, to Americans about the lessons that you've learned since the Russians launched their aggression in 2014 and then expanded it in 2022?
Ми спеціалізувалися на денних,
War changed a lot, and it has changed its face a few times throughout the last few years of the full-scale invasion. The main goal for Makar in 2022 was he was in the infantry unit, and his main idea and his main goal in the infantry unit was to build the strong unit within the infantry corps of the 3rd Assault Brigade. But back in 2022, when serving in the infantry, Makar had to take part in night operations as well as day assaults, and for the most of it, the experience that he was able to take from the internet was based on the videos of US military soldiers like Navy SEALs and stuff. The way they plan, they fight. As we can see, the war changed a lot, and now 80% of the success does not depend on the soldier on the battlefield eventually, but on the technologies and how successfully we can use both technologies and soldiers who know how to work with those technologies on the battlefield. A programmer and an engineer can do more on a battlefield than a soldier who's practicing drills with his gun 24/7 every day, every night.
Те, що зараз відбувається в Україні, вчить, в принципі, весь світ, як потрібно вести сучасну війну.
Considering the fact that the war in Ukraine is now the most technological that has ever been, we would really appreciate if all the countries that are willing to support us would take more time to study and look at how technological war can get and where it can lead us eventually. Our nation is currently paying the highest price because we are losing the best people of our country, and they could have been building the country, the future of Ukraine. Instead, they're in a war zone. So,
how quickly are you able to iterate on technology on the front lines?
So in case with the 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, like the technological revolution started from the people who are on the ground. Back at the time, brigade commander Andrei Beletsky saw that stuff works, these things works. He gave his approval. He was always supportive for the unit itself, for them to develop new technologies for destroying enemy, and try to launch some innovations from the up or from the bottom. But like this should work just like one single mechanism, where people on the ground try new things, people on the top approve them. We came up with our own ideas, tactics, resources, the way we split them, the way we use them on the battlefield. And in terms of the brigade and the command of our brigade, they have seen the results, and they're just trying to make them even more and more and more.
We're all following very closely the fight in Pocrosk. The Russians, in my assessment, are putting out a lot of disinformation into the U.S. media space to try and give Americans and other supporters of Ukraine the sense that Pokrovsk is lost. Can you comment on the situation there about the fight and the tactics that the Russians are using, including using troops disguised as civilians to infiltrate your positions?
Справді я не зовсім можу коментувати події в Покровську, оскільки це трохи не наш напрямок. Ми стоїмо лівіше.
It's not for us to comment on Pocrosk because our direction is a little bit to the top from the Pocrosk. We're on Borova and Liman. But the tactics the enemy is using in Pocrosk hasn't changed a lot from what they used in Avdiivka, for example. They try to encircle the city by using a lot of infantry on the flanks. And once they get the opportunity to get enemy into the city, it turns into a meat grinder where they do not count how many they have lost, how many they have wounded, killed, missing in action. They just keep on pulling new people and just sending them forward, just like simple meat grinder, just go forward. And considering the fact that we do not have that much resources as Russia, we cannot allow ourselves to use tactics like Russians use, just like trying to oppose one meat grinder to another meat grinder. It's not possible in our case.
Але щодо тактики противника, вона насправді схожа на ту, яку противник використовує яку він використовував, наприклад, в Авдіївці, так?
So remembering the fights for Avdiivka, just because they are very similar to the fight that's currently ongoing in Pokrovsk, two assault groups from the Makar units, so it's 16 people in total, in 12 days killed 240 Russian assault troopers, and they simply do not stop. They just keep on, they just keep on going, and they don't count how many they've lost. The machine gunner from Makar unit had 3 machine guns replaced in those 12 days, just because the machine gun could not bear with how many Russians it had to kill. In case we lose Pokrovsk city, it doesn't mean that it's Russia forever. Anything can change any moment. As for the war in general, Ukraine broke Russians' plans to finish this war as fast as possible. And now the war itself turned into a kind of a marathon where you can win if you select the right pace in which you can run this long marathon. And hopefully we can select the right pace to keep on breaking Russian plans and winning this war.
Amen.
Love that. I want to ask a question about the marathon war. First, there's a quote that I heard from Makar as I was looking on YouTube where he just said, of course, with Makar being an infantryman, stormtrooper, and now commanding robotics, said, watching how our infantry hold the line under such conditions, I keep thinking I'm not doing enough. I just want to scale our work, do more, and make their life easier. What is morale like in Makar's unit?
Цими самими словами я і мотивую свій особовий склад, оскільки вони розуміють, що є ті, кому важче, і їхня робота полягає в тому, щоб цій піхоті максимально допомогти, наскільки це можливо.
So as for the others in Makar's unit, the quote that you mentioned by Makar, where he mentioned that there is always infantry and he feels that he's not doing enough. This is the key point for the high morale in his unit. There is always an infantryman who is sitting in the trench right now, surrounded by the technologies and people, and everything and everyone is trying to kill him. So there is no need. If you work in the UGV field, we can say that you've got kind of nothing to cry about because you're not in the trench right now. Another key point about serving in the infantry and in the assault units, you gain and you lost.
Ми втрачали побратимів, і великою частиною нашої роботи є якраз продовження нашої боротьби в честь них.
And sometimes you gain ground, but you lost some of your friends. And this is also a very important point for the unit itself. We're trying to do everything for the guys whom we already lost in memory of those guys. Because the stuff they did on the battlefield is not forgotten. The people who were taking part in the assaults are not forgotten.
What did you do before 2022, before Russia expanded its invasion against Ukraine?
До початку повномасштабного вторгнення я був, можна так сказати, приватним підприємцем.
So Makar was not in the military before the full-scale invasion. However, his brother was serving in 2014-2015. And in his civil life, Makar was working, he was having his own coffee shop, some car leasing services as well.
Пейнтбольний клуб.
A paintball club.
So he was an
Makar, he was always social proactive in Ukraine. And since we have war going on, not from 2022, but from 2014, Makar was taking part, volunteering, helping, sending some aid to the fighters on the front line.
And what does Makar want to do when this war is over? Go back to business? What is his dream?
Я не думаю про те, що буде в моєму житті після.
Makar is trying not to think a lot about the end of the war, because like a missile can hit us right now and we're dead, that's it. But as for the plans for right now, as for the war ends, he'd like you, Ryan, to drive him on the Apache helicopter.
Deal. I will
Done.
do it. Makar, if I can just ask, since you're the ones on the front lines fighting this, how do you want to see this war end?
Та як Україна бореться вже стільки років і дає відсіч настільки великому противнику. Я б хотів, щоб кінець цієї війни раз і назавжди поставив крапку.
The war between Ukraine and Russia has been going on for centuries. You can check any historical evidence. They always been trying to bring suffering and pain to the Ukrainian nation. So we would like this war to be the final dot in the history of our suffering that's coming from Russian Federation, from their totalitarian regime.
Щоб наші майбутні покоління ніколи більше не знали, що таке поле бою, що таке війна.
And yep, we'd like this to end, and none of our children or grandchildren or whoever else from Ukrainian nation ever take part in defending their country again from a neighboring country.
If it ended and you lost territory, would you want to see that happen or no?
We don't see the end of war, like the case you mentioned that like Russia comes out with some of our territories. Because as we know and as the history shows us, if Russia is able to take some part of the territory, of one territory, they will eventually come back for more. So in our case, we don't see it as a stop of the war, but just a pause that's ideally should be used by our country for just getting ready for a new war. And one day it may be some groundbreaking news and we will eventually come out from the defense and go on a full-scale offense. Like everything can change any moment. Ukrainian military is one of the best militaries in the world right now, especially considering the amount of experience we gain every day and every hour.
Українські військові захищають не лише Україну, вони є на даний момент мечем і щитом всієї Європи.
And it's very crucial to remember that Ukraine is not just protecting Ukrainians and Ukrainian land, but we're also kind of as a shield and a sword for the whole Europe right now.
What equipment components do you need most if we're able to get a message out to Americans? And then just the message that you would ask of the West, of America, with regard to the fighting that you're in right now.
Перше, це які тебе взагалі є меседжі для Заходу, для людей з США.
First one is, what equipment do you need? Like, what are you short on? That if you have the right people listening to this, if they could just get something to you, what type of equipment do you need most right now?
Завжди буде не хватати роботів для того, щоб знищувати більше. Так, от скільки б мені не дали, мені їх завжди буде мало, бо від їхньої кількості буде залежати, скільки я зроблю пакості і знищень противнику. Так.
As for the first part of the question, Makar is always happy to get new robots to kill more Russians. So if you have any, you can give us to us.
І нам потрібно постійно прикривати своє небо.
First and foremost, our anti-air system, something to protect our skies, because you can clearly see targets Russia chooses for their missile attacks or Shahid attacks. For the most part of it, it's just like civilian people in civilian cities. So yeah, we would really like to have a more anti-air systems just to cover our skies.
Наші бійці, які я просто бачив це на полі бою, які деколи зробили просто неможливі речі, які ніколи не вкладуться в голові.
So as for the message to the people from the West, like in general, Makar have seen in his own eyes things people do on the battlefield, and sometimes you cannot just believe it, that people are capable of doing such things. And it's really crucial to understand that Ukraine is a great example. If you even open the map right now and you just compare the size of our country and the country we are fighting a war with, we're a great example that the amount of active servicemen, the amount of tanks and whatsoever that you have in your country, it does not always determine how powerful you are. And in terms of Ukraine, our main power are our people, our like motivated people who are willing for Ukraine to exist. The war in Ukraine have shown you're going to have thousands of institutes of war. You can have a lot of people who are working on tactics and planning and whatsoever, but war can change drastically just in 1 second. The key factor that changes the war and the way the war goes is people. And Ukraine has lost a lot of great people who could have done a lot of great things for the country, but they chose to give their life for this country to keep on existing. And we would really like all the people from the West and all other countries in the world to pay very close attention to what's going on here in Ukraine, because any other country in the world can actually be the next one if we don't fall here and if we keep on fighting with Russia and we actually set them back. It's just a matter of time, and they will find another weak target, another weak spot, as they may think, and they will attack another country. So I think it's for everyone. It's not only on the shoulders of Ukraine to make this war end, but it's for the whole civilized world to keep on pushing on barbaric Russia.
Thank you, Makar. I agree with you 1,000%. And we always tell people in the United States, we do a lot of speaking about the war in Ukraine, and we tell them that the Ukrainians are fighting to protect us and our common values, which we share many of with the people of Ukraine. In my many trips to Ukraine, I've seen many, many people who are heroes, both military, civilians, men, women, children, and for all the Americans, for all our listeners and people that follow restricted handling, it is really an inspiration to see young people like Makar. I've seen many of this over and over again, and it's God bless them. God bless the people of Ukraine, and God give the people of Russia the wisdom to know to stop this war, because over 1 million casualties and it's getting them nothing. Russia's not better today because of this war. Russia is much worse off, and the people of Russia are suffering more than they were before Vladimir Putin started this stupid war in 2014.
Let's try to push Russia together and make sure they don't exist anymore.
I have one last question. Where is Ryan going to fly you in the Apache? What state do you want to fly over?
Там хочешь полетать на Apache.
Окей.
Colorado.
Colorado. Can you do it, Ryan?
There is an Apache unit in Colorado, but we probably have to go to Vegas to shoot.
Okay, and Vegas.
So for the barter, you can give Makar a ride on Apache, and we gladly invite you to come shoot Ukraine, and you can make friends with the NC-13 unit, and we'll show you much more than just taking captivities with the UGV. We have a lot of more things to show.
Okay.
Makar, when your beard is gray, we're flying you in an Apache when this is over.
Я не доживу до цих моментів.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Both of you stay safe for sure. Like, we're thinking about you, doing great work. Thanks for taking time with us in the middle of operation.
Дякую.
Thank you.
До побачення.
Thank you. До побачення. Have a good one.
В Colorado.